And then they ended off with a nice little documentary talking about how this all came to be. PlayStation, was in conversations with Arc System Works of making a game. PlayStation reaches out to Marvel. Marvel says, yeah, we're very interested. Arc System Works did a great job, or has been doing a great job making fighting games for the last couple of years. This set off alarm bells in my head because, like many other in the FGC, the fighting game community, and I wouldn't consider myself part of that, Connor, but you would, right? There's another very famous Marvel fighting game franchise called Marvel versus Capcom.
Yes. They've had 4 games.
4 games.
The first 3 being very, very well received. Infinite, not so much.
Yeah, the last one they did back in 19?
I think it was 2018.
2018,
we talked about it.
Yeah, we talked about it. 2018, 2019. So it's been some time since we've had a Marvel vs. Capcom game. And last year, or this year, maybe early this year, I forget the timeline.
17.
We had, we had that Marvel vs. Capcom fighting collection come out. So you would have expected that would have laid the groundwork for the return of Marvel vs. Capcom, a big comeback for the previous tag team Marvel fighter that kind of shook up the industry and shook up the fighting game community, right? Some of the best fighting games of all time are in that franchise. So you would imagine, we're probably going to get a new one. But instead we get this. And it sounds like PlayStation, who generally has a very good relationship with Capcom, is the one that kind of went, hey, guys, let's give us the IP. We're going to give it to this other team. And we're going to make a PlayStation Studios Marvel tag team fighter excluding Capcom. If I'm Capcom in this scenario, I feel a way about that. Hey, that's ours. Because when the trailer started, I didn't know who Arc System Works was off the top of my head. So I thought that this was going to, I thought Chris Redfield was going to pop out at any moment, or Dante was going to pop out at any moment and play into this. And then I was like, oh no, it's just a Marvel fighter. It's only Marvel characters. Okay, cool. It's Capcom's completely excluded. Are we just not going to talk about the slight that is to Capcom? Are we not going to talk about how PlayStation kind of snaked the Marvel fighting IP out from under Capcom here? And then I started thinking, when's the last time I saw a Capcom game announced at a PlayStation press conference, showcase, state of play? And it's been a little bit. And Capcom and PlayStation have been kind of like buddy-buddy for a long, long time now, about 2017. Resident Evil 7 was announced on a PlayStation stage. I think Village was announced on a PlayStation stage. All of the remake games have been announced on a PlayStation stage. Monster Hunter World definitely was Wilds.
Wilds was Game of the Year.
Wilds was Game Awards.
Game Awards, yeah. So, no.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then that brings me to my next piece that we're going to talk about later. Resident Evil 9 got announced, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But that got announced at a Keighley stage also.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to now scratch my head and go, I wonder what the relationship of Capcom and PlayStation is now. I think it's changed. I think the relationship between those two those two publishers has deteriorated a little bit. Now, you could say, Tavin, Pragmata was just you just talked about Pragmata 35 minutes ago. And you're absolutely right. Pragmata is on this stage. But Pragmata was announced 3-4 years ago, right? So that marketing deal is already done. The marketing for Pragmata is being done by PlayStation. We know this, all right? That's already set in stone. This game has been in development for several years, right? Enough time for them to now turn around on that. And the fact that I can't remember the last PlayStation Capcom announcement says something to me. I could be wrong. I could be crazy. But I'm just saying, if we start seeing announcements happen at other showcases, that's interesting. And if we start seeing less and less happening from Capcom at a PlayStation State of Play, I think it's fucking fascinating that Capcom gave both Monster Hunter Wilds and Resident Evil 9, the two franchises that have exploded in the AAA space, on PlayStation stages, are now on Keighley stages. That means something. And I don't think it means anything for Keighley. Good for Keighley for getting those announcements, right? But it means something in terms of the relationship between Capcom and PlayStation. Am I crazy?
Not crazy. Whether that's actually, more likely than not is another thing entirely. I mean, Capcom regardless of how good of a relationship you've had with someone like PlayStation, you're not owned by them. And Capcom itself has been doing very good in an independent space. So they aren't really obligated to do anything with PlayStation. And in the case of, other things could have happened beyond the scenes more than just this Marvel fighting game. Mainly because if it's hinging on this causing a rift between Capcom and PlayStation, it'd be kind of weird seeing as how they haven't done anything at all with the IP of Marvel vs. Capcom until recently. No mainline game had been made since 2017. And even before, it wasn't just about Marvel vs. Capcom, but a bunch of Marvel, Capcom fighting games, like Darkstalkers included.
But I don't see that as Capcom not doing something with it. I see as Marvel going, we're not interested in doing that with you, at least for a little while. But I do see the collection coming out as, well, maybe we can get this ball rolling again. Only for, no, we're not going to get that ball rolling again. We're going to go to this other publisher who has a deal with a studio who Dragon Ball FighterZ came out the same year as Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and kind of stole the show. So we're going with your direct competitor who's also doing tag team fighting. Shout out again, Griffin Fever in the chat saying 3v3 got added for Strive later on down the line. So Arc System Works has history with tag team fighters. This is basically your direct competition when it comes to the fighting game space. And instead of giving this IP to you that historically has meant so much, we're going to give it to this other team. I'm just, listen, I could be blowing smoke. I could be doing a bunch of bullshit where there is none. I'm not trying to start drama, and I don't think I can start drama. This is business, But just mark my words right now. If we stop seeing Capcom games announced on PlayStation stages, I'm talking the big boys, mark my words right now, that means that relationship has deteriorated.
Now, Griffin Fever makes a good point. I had forgotten Strive added 3v3. I thought they were still making it, but I haven't played actually in a while. It would make sense they're more upset at Arc Systems work, as you kind of mentioned, how they're one of the main competitors. I mean, right now it's I'm all of a sudden blanking on the studio behind Tekken. Like, I know it's a PlayStation game, like Sony.
I couldn't tell you.
Fuck, dude. I'm like, I should know that. I should know that right off the back of my head. But it seems like, the competitor, the competing against Street Fighter, against, Arc Systems games, now with this Marvel game coming out, maybe the bad blood is less about Marvel and PlayStation, but more them trying to fight against, on the gaming, the fighting game market, against Arc System. But what you're saying has validity to it.
Yeah.
It is, we often say wait and see on this podcast because game development takes so long. And that's inherently tied to game announcements and showcases like this. We'll see if they end up being farther apart. Because when we first talked about this, you mentioned how it was a dead giveaway that they have issues if they were on the Xbox stage, which they weren't.
If Resident Evil showed up at the Xbox showcase, which it didn't, but if it had, that's a dead giveaway to me. That's a big, we are completely switching sides.
If that was the case, I would have been like, yeah, something's up. Going to your...
But I don't think it's
the opposite.
Like, it's not nothing that they're showing up on Keighley stages now. That's weird to me.
But even going back to Wilds, they also did show up at State of Plays. So
Wilds did show up at State of Plays.
The gameplay, where I think it got the most traction when it was being shown, like what kind of game this exactly is. It was on that State of Play stage.
But announcements are bigger than reruns. Like seeing a game for the first time is bigger than seeing a game for the second, third, fourth time, right? And Monster Hunter was everywhere. Mm-hmm. It showed up on all the stages.
Yeah.
Maybe not in Xbox because I don't remember. Did it show up at the? I don't know. But all of that to say, where you announce is bigger than where you show your gameplay or where you give a deep dive or where you just give a trailer. You know. Right. And so I just think it's interesting that the last two major Capcom games have not been announced on a PlayStation stage when historically they are. The only one that I can think of that wasn't was Monster Hunter Rise, which makes sense. That was a Nintendo Switch exclusive game when it launched. So that's, they had a publishing deal to make a spin-off Monster Hunter game for the Switch. Totally cool. Whatever. But also Devil May Cry 5, which was on an Xbox stage, Okay. That was some years ago. The relationship wasn't like fully developed like it had become. But when we saw Resident Evil 7, 8, Question mark? I think Google that for me. I think Village showed up on a PlayStation stage when it was announced. Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, Resident Evil 4 all show up on PlayStation stages. So to break from that pattern to go to a Keighley stage is fascinating. And then Monster Hunter Worlds, which is the biggest Monster Hunter game up until that point, was announced on a PlayStation stage to then go to Keighley for both of your big franchises, big two franchises in the 2020s. That says a lot to me.
I'm seeing it was. It seems like it was Resident Evil. Yeah, it was at a PS5 event, Village, when it was unveiled.
Yep. So why are we seeing a break in the pattern? The deal's been working. Capcom, we've talked about it last week.
Yeah.
Capcom's games have been selling like crazy.
Even old games included.
Yeah.
Because they offer
and they had
things at a discount.
They had 3 ads in the middle of Summer Game Fest saying, hey, all of our games are on sale. Go buy them.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I don't know. It's interesting. But let's move on, Connor. We got to get to the rest of this episode, which we got a lot left to cover. Summer Game Fest.